You never know what's going to happen. The whole thing could come crashing down upon me. Good morning, mushrooms, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, brothers, sisters, mothers, misters, and to all my cousins out there around the world, it's time to plug in and get this train a-chugging. And so into the newsroom we go. And so let's just kind of let the good times roll whilst exploring the dark, dark world that we live in. All right, North Korea's sand scheme. Ooh, they have a scheme, as we've had before on the show. A scheme is an elaborate plan with many different working pieces, usually in order to attain a particular object or to put into effect some sort of idea or plan of action. In the US, this typically has a sort of underhanded, nefarious, maybe secret, evil sort of connotation, whereas in the UK, it just is an elaborate plan. They have pension schemes and so on. So let's learn a little bit more and explore the caption. So how one natural resource, sand, could be helping Kim Jong-un's regime, his government, to skirt sanctions and rake in millions. Now, let's start at the end here. To rake in millions. To rake something in. Usually in this sense, it's used with money. It could be sales, but sales are also money. And the only other time I can really think of raking things is leaves. Once they fall off the trees in the autumn, we rake the leaves. And so this is the same sort of idea. Imagine instead of leaves, it's bills, it's dollars and euros and these things. And he's just out there cleaning the garden, raking them in. So it implies making money, especially very quickly and very easily. And of course, as you know from the show, sanctions are some sort of penalties, usually economic limitations put on a country by maybe the United Nations or another group of countries. And here with sanctions, we put sanctions on people, and sometimes they defy sanctions. Well, you probably hear it a lot from Iran. However, sometimes countries try to defy sanctions and go against them. Here, he's not trying to go against sanctions, he's trying to skirt them. Now, you probably know a skirt as a piece of clothing that women wear. It's like a dress, except usually shorter, and there's no top on it. It just goes from the waist down. But to skirt something means basically to go around the edges of it. Just like you could say on the edge of the city, on the outskirts of the city. And so, to skirt sanctions, he's not actually defying them, he's not going against them, he's just kind of finding a little workaround so that way he's not actually breaking the rules, so to speak, so that he can rake in the millions. Moving on, George Floyd is laid to rest. That basically means they've had his funeral and burial service, or they are having it. Here, is laid to rest. This is a passive, so by, well, his friends and family, and really at this point the entire nation. To lay, laid, laid. L-A-Y, laid, laid. Different than to lie, and then the past tense of lie is actually lay, and then the past participle lain. His legacy reverberates across the globe. The other day we had resonates, it's definitely about sound. Reverberates, also about sound, and that idea of echo, go, 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 go. And the idea of sound bouncing off the walls. Well, resonate is especially about sound. Reverberate is more about that feeling that you get with the sound. Sometimes if there's a very loud, deep sound, you can feel it in your chest. Yeah? And so this is more about the feeling associated with the sound. But basically they are used in the exact same way. It has been resonating, it has been reverberating, it has been echoing, has rippled across the globe. The effects of it going everywhere. Along those lines, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, his deafening silence. I just love this term in general because silence is, well, silent, the absence of sound, but deaf is an adjective meaning that you can't hear. And as usual, if you add an en to the end of an adjective, that means to make something that adjective. And it is so quiet that it makes it that you can't hear. And so the juxtaposition of these two terms is very, I guess you can't say visual, but it's a very colorful expression, meaning that the silence is actually more powerful or more, well, in this case, questionable, yeah, than actually speaking or taking action. Whatever, moving on. All right, the fight to be Trump's political heir is on. And so an heir is somebody who inherits something from usually their parents or grandparents when they pass away. Those things are passed down to subsequent generations. And so the person who inherits things, in this case maybe the presidency, is his heir. Not pronounced like hair, but pronounced like air, that which we breathe. Yeah? And it is on. That means game on. It is in play. Nobody knows who's going to be his heir. Nobody knows who he's going to pass it down to. Nobody knows who will inherit it and or take over. Moving on. Japanese broadcaster takes down controversial Black Lives Matter anime. Now, for the phrasal verb to take something down, in this case, is quite literal, not so figurative. And it's like they put a sign up on the wall and he's physically just taking it down. Because when we put stuff on the internet, when we post things on the internet, we put it up there for the world to see, much like a sign. And so now they're taking it down because it was either offensive or. Like with most phrasal verbs, other meanings to it, but we're just going to stick with what we got in the headlines here because there's lots of meat down here on these bones. India and China's border spat turns into all-out media war. And often with war, all-out war, it means complete, total, thorough, from inside and out, left to right, top to bottom, it's complete war. Cool. And now it's a border spat. In the past on the show, we've seen that there have been skirmishes along the border. Skirmishes are small, impromptu sort of battles that were not planned. They just kind of broke out or erupted spontaneously. A spat here is like an argument, basically. And spat is the past tense of spit. And I think it comes from the fact that if two people are arguing and yelling at each other in a very heated fashion, as you're yelling, little pieces of spit come flying out of your mouth. And so, remember, social distancing, wear a mask. We've had it so many times because it's a common theme nowadays, people resigning from their position. The CrossFit CEO has resigned from his position of power. He has stepped down. Kremlin spokesperson speaks out. Well, a spokesperson spoke out. Ta-da! What an astounding piece of logic. To speak out on Russia's handling of the virus. Main point here, to speak out or to speak up means to voice your opinion publicly in a loud fashion, and handling the virus, the handling of the virus. No with. We deal with, we handle. We deal with, we handle, we manage. Remember it, learn it, know it, love it, live it. All right? Boom. Internalize it. Repetition is the key to retention. Moving on. Russia, again, back here, raises the stakes with brazen military intervention in the Libyan conflict. All right. To raise the stakes, we've had it before, stakes, and we're going to see it again down below in a slightly different fashion. However, thinking about casinos and gambling, you have high stakes tables and low stakes tables. Now, a guy like me typically goes gambling at the low stakes tables. I would prefer like $5 a hand or something, but then you see those people with a lot of money, they go to the high stakes tables, minimum 1,000, 5,000, etc. And so if they're raising the stakes, they're pushing more of their chips in there, which means they have more invested in the game or the conflict. They're raising the level of seriousness. They're escalating the seriousness of the conflict with their brazen military brazen. Ooh, it means loud and sort of shameless, basically. Like you just do it and you don't care what anyone else thinks. Interestingly, I don't know exactly, I'm not sure if that's why, but brazen is also a sort of archaic word coming to describe objects that are made of brass. And brass, the metal. And what is made of brass? Well, most horns and trumpets and French horns and slide trombones and saxophones. They're made of brass. And if you think about it, the noise that is made by brass horns is very loud and I would say also shameless. And so I don't know if it's true, but I feel like there's an etymological connection between them. But then again, that just might be another case of Mr. Janes making up etymology and word history. Cool. Moving on. More people losing their job. The Flash actor was fired, reduced passive, over offensive tweets. Now, the CEO from CrossFit, due to tweets and or comments, this guy, offensive tweets. How often have we seen people being fired as a result of their tweets? Yes, the internet is a great place to express yourself and your thoughts and your opinions. However, remember, it is public. You will be held accountable if people are listening to you. And there will be backlash, there will be unrest, and people will call for your head on a pike if they disagree with what you say. Best answer? Don't use social media. Or just keep your mouth shut. The NASDAQ tops 10,000 for the first time ever. Topped 10,000 means, well, it went just over 10,000. Ta-da! Logical. Moving on to digestive news. Probiotics don't do much for gut health. Your guts, yeah, your insides, specifically your intestines, where food is processed and so on. Scientists keep discovering more and more of a link between the brain and the gut and the effect between them. Really, really interesting research being done. Moving on. Clues. Clues. Just like anytime you're trying to solve a mystery, you look for clues. You got thumbprints, fingerprints, maybe a stray hair that fell off, footprints, other sort of physical evidence or facts that can lead you to a conclusion, maybe cracking open the mystery, cracking the case. Clues, physical evidence, hints, usually verbal clues that can help you arrive at those conclusions. I like this one. First of all, because I don't think he ever should have been fired for taking a knee in protest during the national anthem. However, they should re-sign him, which means they should hire him again. Meaning again, sign him, get his signature on that contract saying, come work for us. And so this is basically the opposite of resign minus the hyphen. Yeah, resign means you're leaving your job. To re-sign someone is to rehire them. And so just a fun little difference. What a difference a hyphen can make, huh? Artist creates stunning outfits from ocean trash. Stunning, shocking, to the point where you're momentarily paralyzed, unable to think, act, or move. Outfits, meaning clothes. Ensembles. Ooh, that's a really nice outfit. I love that dress with those earrings and the little pretty bow in your hair. Or that's a very nice suit, and I like the way the tie and the pocket squares match. And outfit is just, yes, the full ensemble of clothing that somebody is wearing. And I would say they are stunning, but to me, being just the uneducated fool that I am, still looks like a pile of garbage if you ask me. Can the American-led Black Lives Matter movement trigger an African awakening? To trigger something means to cause it to happen. Just like a trigger or the trigger is the thing on the gun that you pull with your finger, which causes the gun to shoot the bullet. And so a trigger, to cause something to happen. And especially often in a very quick fashion. Yeah, maybe trigger a negative emotional response as a trigger warning. Or trigger warning as I'm reading Good Morning. Alrighty then. Moving on. Australia's rare, elusive night parrot may not see that well in the dark. Ooh, maybe it's like a weird parrot owl. Or maybe it's like a bat and uses echolocation. Who knows? But it's rare. Not very common. There are not very many of them. And as a result, they're also quite elusive. Hard to find, hard to catch. And really, just because something is rare doesn't mean it is elusive. Black rhinos, white rhinos, very rare at this point. On the brink of extinction. However, rhinos, I would say, are not very elusive. They don't sneak around, they hide in the bushes, and they're hard to find. I think that, well, they're big, large animals, and they're out during the daytime, so they're pretty easy to find. If there's not many of them, and they're small, and they only come out at night, yes, they could prove to be a bit more elusive. Hard, difficult to find or catch. Moving on. Hong Kong takes a stake in Cathay Pacific. That's the Hongkongian. Sorry, I'm pleading ignorance on this one. My apologies. Taking a stake in Cathay Pacific Airlines as part of a $5 billion bailout. Remember, a bailout, financial rescue of a company or a country. Yeah, and so they were probably on the brink of bankruptcy. So that they didn't have to file for bankruptcy, the Hong Kong government is bailing them out, giving them a bailout, so that way they can continue operating, continue business, because, all of the people who work there and then the subsequent supplying industries, it would have a huge ripple effect and echo throughout the economy if the company actually collapsed. So they decided to take a stake. And so they're not just giving them a bailout. As a result, they're getting a percentage of the company. And so now they will own maybe a 5% stake in the company. That's why when in business we talk about stakeholders, those are the people who have a stake, some percentage of it, they are invested in it, even if it is not financial and maybe just part of a decision-making process. Stakeholders, to have a stake in something. However, related but different to high stakes, it's a really big deal because there is a lot resting upon the situation. There's a lot, it's very important. I don't know, I lost my train of thought there. Pause, my mouth is also very dry. I forgot to refill my water, but I still have coffee. Thank you for your patience. Moving on. Speaking of coffee, ta-da! Energy drink? A UK startup is turning coffee into fuel. Well, for much of the world out there, coffee already is a fuel, but fuel for humans. Yes, it gives us energy and I would say even keeps the world turning, keeps the economies moving. I just wonder how productive people would be in the absence of coffee. Either way, they're turning coffee into fuel. I'm assuming here that they mean for automobiles or something, fueling something other than humans. But to turn something into something else, to convert it into, transform it into, all pretty much the same. Moving on. Hi, what happened? Ooh, that scared me. You never know what's going to happen. The whole thing could come crashing down upon me. Why brands like Oreo are cutting back on wacky flavors right now. Wacky, crazy, wild, eccentric, outlandish, insane, quirky. Just weird stuff. Oreo, they were probably making some weird flavors. I don't know. Pringles, I've been seeing some pretty wacky flavors out there. I bought some rice-based Pringles with shrimp flavor the other day. Didn't taste like shrimp, didn't taste that bad, but I've been seeing like red curry, Malaysian, and all sorts of other flavors and styles of Pringles that never existed before. Pretty wacky, pretty wild. But Oreo are cutting back on. They are reducing them. To cut back on, to reduce, very similar to cut down on something. Really, it's such a fine difference in meaning that it's totally irrelevant. It's to reduce the number, size, amount of something. My lovely wife is concerned that maybe I should cut back on the amount of coffee I drink in the morning, at least with an empty stomach. Moving on. Get out of here. All right, thanks for the water. To drive means to control and make it go forward, because if you're driving a car, well, the car's not going to go anywhere if you're not driving it. And so what's pushing it forward? What's making it go? And so what is driving the demand? Well, yes, the fact that people are working from home and there are more things going on purely on the internet. And so we need more cloud services, and that's what's pushing the demand for cloud services forward, the fact that we're all working from home. And the question is, really, I know what drives me. The desire to help you improve your vocabulary, and be able to better express yourself and understand this weird, wacky, wild, wonderful, weird world we live in. But tell me, dear viewer, what drives you? I know what fuels you, more coffee. But what drives you? What is your main motivation? What inspires you? Please, feel free and let me know. Trump eyes police reform. Oh, how did I not highlight that? To eye something is to look at it, and if you're looking at it, it means you're thinking about it, you're considering it, which I mean, I doubt he really is, but he eyes police reforms while ignoring systemic racism. Aha! Systemic racism. Well, systemic meaning it is in and part of the system. Yeah, just a nice adjective coming from system. And to ignore something means to not pay attention to it. Yeah, to look the other way. Much like when I cross the street, not in the zebra, and when it's a little red man, not a green man, and there's a police officer sitting right there, he doesn't arrest me, he just looks the other way and ignores the fact that I was breaking the law because it's not really that significant. Look the other way, or to turn a blind eye to something. And so, well, those were the headlines for today, Wednesday, the 10th of June. Everybody else watching out there, feel free, don't be shy. Come in, pop in, drop by, say hi, don't be shy. Get in the comments, ask some questions, complain, give me compliments, shower me in compliments, or just voice your concerns, or just say hi. For English Otherwise, that was breaking down the news today. As you know, if you've made it this far, most people call me Mr. James, but you can call me Cameron. And so if I don't see you sooner, 8 a.m. tomorrow. Peace, love, and bye-bye. Stop the stream.